I've loaded MIT AppInventor 2 into my Chrome browser window, and I started a new project called Neopixel. I'm going to create the user interface for my Neopixel color picker. To start with, I'm going to create a color picker that only works on my phone app and not worry about how it connects to the microbit. I'll get to that later. Colors are created in AI2 by combining values between 0 and 255 for red, green, and blue. The user interface will be 3 sliders labeled red, green, and blue that range from 0 to 255, and a canvas that displays the resulting color as a background color. For the layout, I'm going to add one horizontal arrangement, and inside that put a label and a slider for red. Inside the horizontal arrangement, I put in a label and a slider. And for the label, for the horizontal arrangement, I'm going to set it to fill parent. And then the label, I'm going to change the text to say red. And I'm going to change the width of it to 10%. I'm also going to rename the label to be label red. On the slider, I want it to fill parent, and I want the maximum value to be 255, the minimum value to be 0. Off camera, I renamed the first slider slider red. I added 2 more horizontal arrangements, and I filled them with a label and a slider and adjusted their widths and set the text of the labels to match what I did with the red slider and label. And now I'm going to add a canvas where the background color is going to represent the color chosen by the sliders, and I'm simply going to set the height of that to 30% and set the width to fill parent. Now that we've created the user interface for our color picker, I want to start programming by going to the block size of AppInventor. The first thing I need to do is I want to create a variable. We're going to have a variable for red, green, and blue that's going to hold the values selected with the sliders. I'm pulling out a slider red position change, and what I want to do is originally I want to set the global red to 0, but then what I want to do is every time the position changes on slider red, I want to set red to that value. But one of the things I've learned about sliders is they don't always return integers. And so I want to force this to be an integer. So I'm going to say format as a decimal the thumb position. Set the number of decimal places to 0. And now I'm going to create the same thing for green and blue. Now I've got my 3 variables, red, green, and blue, and then I have a position change block for slider red, slider blue, and slider green, and they basically just set the corresponding variable to the thumb position. Now the other thing I need to do is I want to change the background color of the canvas. So I'm going to grab the set canvas background color, and I'm going to make a color based on the variables red, green, and blue. Off camera, I added a Canvas 1 background color change to both slider blue and slider green. I want to create a block when the screen is initialized. I want the values of red, green, and blue to be set to the thumb positions that they are originally at. So again, I'm going to grab that red and I need this. I'm going to copy that. But instead of just thumb position, I need to actually get the slider red thumb position. And I am going to do that for green and blue too. And then finally, once again, I'm going to change the background color. So I'm just going to copy and paste this block and put it in here. And so now the canvas will be set correctly. Before we move on, let's take a quick look at what our app looks like on the phone. I'm going to scan the QR code with my phone. And you see, I can move the values of my sliders and my canvas background color changes. Now we'll add in BlockyTalkyBLE, an extension created to make it simple to connect an app to a microbit and pass messages back and forth over Bluetooth. In order to pass messages between an app and a microbit, the app needs to connect to a microbit. The extension discovers microbits that are using Bluetooth and creates a list. We can use the List Picker UI to allow the user to connect to one of these microbits. Because Bluetooth connections take time to set up and can disconnect if a microbit is reset or goes out of range, I like to have a label that displays the connection status. Off camera, I named that label Status. Now we want to program the two UI elements we added and include the BlockyTalkyBLE component. And here are the 4 blocks that I've just added. And I want to go over them in the order that they are used when a connection is made between a microbit and this app. When the app is not connected to a microbit, the BlockyTalkyBLE component is scanning Bluetooth for microbits, and every time it finds one, this event handler is called, and the microbit list, the BlockyTalkyBLE microbit list, is updated. So what we want to do is we want to set the list picker microbit to have that microbit list from BlockyTalkyBLE. When the user then chooses a microbit to connect to, we need to call BlockyTalkyBLE connect to the microbit, passing in the index of the from the list picker. And then we also want to keep track of the connection status. So we want to set the label status in a few places. So when an app successfully connects to a microbit through BlockyTalkyBLE, this event fires, and we want to just set the label status to connected. When a microbit disconnects from the app, we want to set the label status to disconnected. And when this occurs, the BlockyTalkyBLE will automatically start scanning again. And so we also just added this label status text to microbit found so that the user also knows when a microbit has been found when it's scanning. So these 4 blocks have set up the connection between a microbit and this app. And now what we want to do is go back to our slider event handler, and we want to start sending messages across the BlockyTalky. And so we basically get to create our own API for this. So here we have I simply send the value, the key red, and then pass in the value that the red is set to by the slider, and do the same thing for blue and green. And that's it. That's all we need for BlockyTalky, and now we're sending messages over BLE to the microbit. So add these blocks to your app, but we can't test any of this until we actually have code for the microbit. So now we're going to turn to making code for the microbit.